Hello, everyone. How is everyone doing today? Thank you very much for attending tonight's event, and we have a very exciting guest. Before we start, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Jonathan Osak, the social media director and the community engagement coordinator for the Boston chapter. I will be managing this Zoom meeting. If you have any questions, please feel free to message me. Before I make an introduction, I would like to go over some ground rules. As you can see some ground rules, captions are enabled. And of course, just about a couple minutes ago, we just said that we're going to be recording. So meetings is being recorded to be made available to our members via YouTube. Please mute yourself during the presentation. Number 4, please hold questions to the end of each topic. For
It's
Q&A,
okay to interrupt. With me, it's okay to interrupt.
It's okay to interrupt, but as long as and that was my next ground rule for Q&A. Just click the hand icon on the bottom of the Zoom to raise your hand if you have any questions, or like I mentioned earlier, just direct message me if you have any questions. And with that being said, Carrie Silverman, who is the president of this HLA Boston chapter, she is going to introduce you to Dr. King Chung. So, Carrie, if you can unmute yourself, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jonathan. So join me in welcoming Dr. Chung to our meeting today. Dr. Chung is a PhD and a professor of audiology at the MGH Institute of Health Professions. That is actually Mass General for those of you online that are out-of-towners. Dr. Chung is an educator, a researcher, an innovator, and a humanitarian. Her education, she got her BS at Utah State, her MA in audiology from the University of Memphis, and her PhD in audiology from Northwestern. Her areas of expertise are in amplification, calibration, and humanitarian audiology. Dr. Chung's research focuses on how to improve signal processing strategies of hearing aids and cochlear implants. Her research team also developed an automated hearing test app to improve access to hearing loss identification, especially in low to mid-income countries. Dr. Chung was granted 3 US patents with a 4th pending for innovative approaches to enhancing the performance of amplification devices and to improve access to audiological services and equipment through low-cost alternatives. Applying her expertise to improve the human condition and to foster future generations of humanitarians, Dr. Chung has led students on greater than 10 study abroad, research, and service trips to 8 different countries and 5 continents to facilitate better hearing care services to the underserved communities. In fact, I think Dr. Chung is preparing to go to Jordan in the next week or so.
No, tomorrow.
Tomorrow, there we go. She also supports humanitarian missions of other nonprofit organizations to different countries. Dr. Chung is the recipient of Excellence in Research Award, Excellence in Service Award, and the Award for Promoting Academic Equity and Diversity in Service from the College of Human and Social Services at her university. Before she joined MGH, Mass Gen, she was a Fulbright scholar to Brazil and a recipient of the Humanitarian Award from the American Academy of Audiology. Very impressive on all counts. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Chung to our meeting tonight.
Thank you, Carrie. Really appreciate the introduction and getting me over here and then to share what I love. I have been in this field for quite many years, you know, if you cannot tell my age. Today I'm going to talk about something that is also near and dear to my heart, which is hearing aid technologies. And then also I have been teaching in universities for more than 20 years. I think it's about 30 years or something. Well, that shows my age. But anyway, so let's get started today. So this is an overview. So what we're going to do is to say, okay, how do we hear? You know, what are the systems that is out there helping us hear? And then how to read an audiogram, and then also hearing how do the hearing aid technologies can help us, and then also when to seek cochlear implants. And I have to mention that, you know, this slide deck was more than 80 slides. And then Carrie is the one to help me, you know, trim down to 40 something. So I put her name in here. So to really appreciate her help in doing this whole thing. So before we do anything else, and then let's just watch a video. I think I need to read, you know, not stop share in order to share the audio. So just a second. I'm going to share the audio. Okay, share sound. That's good. All right. So when I click this one, I think it goes to YouTube. All right. So if you cannot hear, let us know and then I can pause a little bit. So this is the journey of sound to the brain. So from the outside environment all the way to the brain.
Have you ever wondered how sounds make their way from the source all the way to your brain? Take a trumpet, for instance. When it's played, it makes sound waves in the air. The outer ear catches the waves, which then travel through a narrow passageway called the ear canal. The sound waves reach the eardrum, which is a membrane roughly half the size of a dime. They make the eardrum vibrate, which in turn vibrates 3 tiny bones called the malleus, incus, and stapes. These bones amplify or increase the sound vibrations and send them to the cochlea. The cochlea is shaped like a snail and is the size of a garden pea. It is filled with fluid, and the sound vibrations make this fluid ripple, which creates waves. Hair-like structures called stereocilia sit on top of hair cells and are grouped together as hair cell bundles inside the cochlea. The hair cells inside the cochlea ride these waves, and the hair bundles are moved. The hair bundle on top of the hair cell turns these movements into electrical signals. As the hair bundles are moved, ions rush into the top of the hair cells, causing the release of chemicals at the bottom of the hair cells. The chemicals bind to the auditory nerve cells and create an electrical signal, which travels along the auditory nerve to the brain. Different hair cells respond to different frequencies of sound. The hair cells at the base of the cochlea detect higher-pitched sounds, such as a piccolo or flute. The hair cells toward the top of the spiral detect progressively lower-pitched sounds, such as a trumpet or trombone. At the very top or apex of the spiral, the hair cells detect the lowest-pitched sounds, such as a tuba. The auditory nerve carries the electrical signal to the brain, which interprets the messages as sounds that we recognize and understand.
So hopefully that gives you an idea of how sounds are traveling. So let's go on to the audiograms. So an audiogram is actually a graph that is going to show you about how you can hear or how much you can hear. So usually when we are explaining it, and then you probably have heard that, oh, okay, on the left-hand side, it would be the low frequencies or low pitches. And then on the right-hand side, we mark the high frequencies or high pitches. And then when we are going downward, it actually marks the signal that is going to be louder and louder. So on the top will be the softer sounds, and then the bottom will be the louder sounds. An audiogram usually shows you the threshold, and then the thresholds are the softest sounds you can hear at different frequencies or at different pitches. And then I have highlighted here the symbols. If it is for the right ear, so right, red. So R is right, red. And then the left-hand side, we use these symbols, and then they are usually marked in blue. Although sometimes if an audiologist does not have two colors of pens with them, they will just mark them with the black pens. So you just need to recognize the symbol, whether it's a circle, that would be for the right ear, or an X for the left ear. And so usually the audiogram you see will be just like, plain, but then because we're trying to explain something that is really, how we know the audiogram and how are we relating that to the sounds in our environment, then I picked this audiogram. So this audiogram shows that different sounds with different intensity. So if it is water dripping, it will be very soft. Remember that soft is on top. And then low frequencies is on the left-hand side. And then if it is a really loud helicopter, then it will be really way down. And then the frequency or the pitches would be very high. So then the helicopter occupies the right bottom corner. And then for adults, normal hearing would be between 0 and 25. But children, we will say between 0 and 20. So that's why, you see this one is 20, and then there's a gray region here, about 5 dB that divides the children's normal hearing and the adults' normal hearing. But otherwise, then, if it is more than 25, then we say that the person has hearing loss. And, when we try to understand the audiogram, we have to, think about how the symbols or how the thresholds are tested. So there are two different ways to test your threshold. One is to use the headphones. So the headphones or the insert earphone, if someone, wrote up some, tip and phone tip and then stick it into your ear, that is called an insert earphone. Whether you use the headphone or insert earphone, you should get exactly the same result. And how they are testing it is that you present the sound through the headphone or the insert earphone, and then that is going to go into the ear canal. And that sound is going to vibrate the middle ear, the 3 little bones, and then vibrate create a wave that is called a traveling wave in the cochlea. And then the sound is going to be sent to the brain. So in this test, then the sounds are traveling to the outer ear, middle ear, inner ear, and also the auditory nerve. The second way of testing is that sometimes when you go to the office and then they just put a little thing behind your ear, which is called the bone conductors. So with this bone conductor, it directly vibrates your skull. And then that vibration is transmitted into the inner ear. So then it will bypass the outer ear and the middle ear. So, and then you say, okay, what is the difference? So if there's no difference between testing outer ear, middle ear, and inner ear, and only testing the inner ear, that means that your middle ear and outer ear are fine. So then they are good. Or there's nothing in the middle ear or the outer ear preventing the sounds from from traveling through the auditory system. And that's how you see in here, you will have the thresholds, and then you have the bone conduction. The AC thresholds are marked by the circles or the X's. And then the BC thresholds would be from the with the sort of like triangle, the brackets. So if there's no difference between these two, then we say, oh, okay, then the person has a sensory neural hearing loss. So that's how we introduce the type of hearing loss. And we're going to talk about it a little bit more. So first thing is that you will be tested the right ear and the left ear usually separately. And then they would mark it with a circle or X. So that's the laterality, whether it is the right ear or the left ear. And then second thing is that, what about the degree of hearing loss? So first thing is that when they mark these thresholds, that means that, oh, okay, at different frequencies, okay, I think these ones are transmitted a little bit, differently. So then when you're marking these, and then this one is supposed to be marked at 125. I think there was a transmission problem here, but in any case, if there are sounds that is below the air conduction threshold, that means those are the sounds that you can hear. But then if there are sounds that is above this line, that means those ones you can't hear. So for this particular person, and then with this kind of hearing thresholds, basically the whole speech banana, which is, the banana shape here with all the speech sounds, are not audible to them unless it's spoken really loudly. So these are called the phonemes. Each sound is called each phoneme. So each phoneme, if they're spoken in a normal voice effort, they will fall into these regions and the intensities on the audiogram. But if you have a hearing loss of the blue and red, basically all those sounds are not audible if they are spoken in a normal voice effort. And the louder sounds they can hear. So all these sounds that are below the blue and red, they can hear. So for this person, and then we will say, okay, exactly what is the degree of hearing loss? Then I also have marked on the side that if it is between 0 and 20 or 0 and 25, then it means that it is a normal hearing. But then anywhere between 21 for a kid or 25 for an adult and 40, then we say the person has a mild hearing loss. And then the green would be the moderate, and then the blue would be moderately severe, and then severe range, and then the profound hearing loss range is any sound that is above 90 dB. So this person's hearing is not too bad, but then it's also not too good. Not too good means that all the speech sounds are not audible. Not too bad means that there's still a lot of sounds in the environment, the loud sounds, they can hear. All right, so that was the which year that we're talking about. Remember, red, right, and then blue, left. And then the type of hearing loss, and then we had an example of sensory neural hearing loss. But let's take a look at this, audiogram, the diagram again. So remember that if it is the air conduction or using the headphones, we're testing the outer ear, the middle ear, the inner ear. But if we are using the bone vibrator or the bone conductor, we are only testing the inner ear. So then if the two thresholds that you get between these two, testing methods are within 10 dB, then we say, oh, okay, then, basically that means that there's no difference. And why are we using the 10 dB is because the calibration of the transducers or the headphones or the bone conductor is not the same, they cannot be exactly the same. So then we will say, okay, as long as they're within 10 dB, we're saying that it is okay. So this is an audiogram that a person has air conduction threshold, and then also this brackets, they're at about the same place. That means that either way you test, whether you go through the whole system or only test the inner ear, you're getting the same threshold. That means that nothing in the middle or the outer ear is preventing the sounds from being transmitted. Then you have what it calls as the sensory neural hearing loss. And the air bone gap means that the air thresholds and the bone thresholds, they are less than or equal to 10 dB. So then, that is a sensory neural hearing loss. So, and then you say, okay, how about if a kid has middle ear problem or an adult has earwax plugging the whole ear canal? That means that you will have some gunk in the middle ear or the outer ear. And then when this sound that you test using the headphones or inter-earphones, and it is going to yield a higher threshold than the way that when you only test the inner threshold. So less means less better. That means poorer. So then your air conduction thresholds are going to be poorer than the bone conduction thresholds. And then that difference is usually more than 15 dB. Then you say, okay, the person would have conductive hearing loss. And then if you're saying that they have normal bone conduction threshold, then it will be a purely conductive hearing loss. So as in this case, so these brackets, again, are the bone conduction thresholds. And then the circles and the X's are the air conduction threshold. And then because when you test these two different ways, there's some gunk in the middle ear or the outer ear that makes your air conduction thresholds worse than your bone conduction threshold. And then we are saying that, well, this difference is called the air bone gap. And then if you have normal bone conduction thresholds, but hearing loss, hearing thresholds in the hearing loss range, remember that is below or poorer than 25, then we say the person has a conductive hearing loss. So conductive hearing loss, bone normal, AC abnormal, and there's a difference between the two, then we say the person has a conductive hearing loss. There's another scenario is that how about the bone conduction threshold is not normal? So if the bone conduction threshold is in the hearing loss range, and then the air conduction thresholds are even worse, and you have a difference between the two for more than 15 dB, that's an air bone gap of more than 15 dB, then you say, okay, then this person, the inner ear is not working right because the bone conduction threshold only tests the inner ear. So the inner ear is not working right. And then when you test the whole system, it's also not right. That means the person has something in the middle and outer ear and also in the inner ear. So then we say that is a kind of mixed hearing loss. So you say mixed hearing loss means that the inner ear is not normal, and then also the outer and the middle ear is not normal. So then we say they have a mixed hearing loss. So how are we doing? Do we have any questions?
It looks like we do have one question from Carrie Silverman. So Carrie, if you can unmute yourself and go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, so thank you. I just wanted to suggest that we take a moment because that was, I think, a lot to digest. And I know personally for me, when I think about the two different tests, it was not apparent to me, even though I've had them both for years, that one was testing the whole system, the one with the headphone, and the one behind the bone was eliminating the outer and middle ear. So what you said, Dr. Chung, that if they both show about the same results, it means the whole system's a problem.
Well, that means the
Central
inner
neural.
ear is the problem.
Yeah, the inner ear, excuse me, I'm sorry, that's right. So sensorineural, excuse me. And if it's not, if they're widely different, if they're more widely different, that's the way. I just wanted to ask the crowd if that understanding was getting through. I know I had a harder time to process that.
Okay, thank you, Carrie. We do have another question that's in the chat room. We have this guy named Harry, he has been every meeting to our Zoom every time. So his question is, how about doing a SNR test I've read about, sentences read with background noises like one might experience in a restaurant or group or at work. Babble is a term I've seen, I believe. Should that be done as part of the hearing test or one that has more hearing loss, more loss of hearing over a somewhat short period of time, or is there any other test?
Yep. So what you're describing in noise is because, if when you are testing, and then when you present the signal to one ear, sometimes it's going to go through the bone and then go to the other ear. So when they put noise in there, that means that they want to eliminate the non-test ear to participate in the, threshold testing. That's called masking. So then you eliminate the non-test ear by presenting noise. So that ear is wiped out. Then they can test the real ear, the ear that they want to test. And then, so that one, sometimes you will, if you have a difference between the ears, or sometimes when you have a big difference between, especially for conductive hearing loss or for mixed hearing loss, then you are more likely to experience that. Or you have the 2 ears are very different, the hearing thresholds are very different, then they will also try to mask out the non-test ear and then focus on testing the test ear.
Okay, and before I even get back to Harry, we do have one person who raised your hand. So, Caroline, if you could unmute yourself and go ahead.
Yes, my question is, I have heard the term hidden hearing loss, and I wondered if you would speak to that.
That one is when a person has normal hearing thresholds, but they experience a lot of difficulties understanding speech, especially in noise. Then a lot of times, and if you remember the hair cells, the hair cells has to transmit the signal into the nerve, right? And then the hair cells, the nerves would touch the hair cells. But if some of those touching is dislodged, then not all the signal is sent to the brain, and then that person will experience more difficulties understanding speech, even though their hearing thresholds are normal. So that's called a hidden hearing loss.
Does that answer your question, Caroline? Awesome. And then I see Harry, one more from Harry, that he said, I've had the background static sound with just words, but not sentences.
Yeah, so then that is also another way. And then we're going to talk about how to test speech in the, later in the lecture. So then let's hold on to that thought, and then we'll continue with that.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I think that we pretty much caught up with everyone's questions. So why don't you go ahead and continue with your slideshow?
All right, thank you. So then we have, and then when we're talking about hearing loss, and then we usually talk about, okay, what is which ear you have the problem? The second thing is that what is the degree of hearing loss? And then we also have a conventional way, convention to say what is the shape of the hearing loss or the audiogram. Then we say what is the configuration, which is basically what is the shape of the audiogram. So when you're talking about the shape, and then if you go slow, go sloping down, and then this is called a sloping audiogram. If you come back up, from the low frequencies to the high frequencies, then we say it's a rising. And what we always mention is from the low frequencies to the high frequencies. Slope means that is slow, the low frequencies is better, and then the high frequencies is worse. And then rising or reverse means that the low frequencies are worse, and then the high frequencies are better. And then we also have this cookie bite. If you have this dip sort of in the middle of the audiogram, we say it's a cookie bite audiogram. And then if you have a rising one and then coming down again, this one looks like a tent or looks like a reverse cookie bite. Some people use the tent shape, or some people use reverse cookie bite. And you can also have a flat hearing loss or corner audiogram. Corner audiogram means that you have some hearing in the low frequencies, but then not in the high frequencies. So then it's sort of, you can only hear the very low frequencies, very loud sounds only. And then we also have other shapes. And then, for this one, if you ski and then you look at this slope and then you say, oh my gosh, this is a really steep slope. So then, so some people would say this is a steeply sloping hearing loss. Some people would say it's precipitous, or saying it is a ski loss. So basically means that low frequencies are rather good, but then very quickly at a very short, frequency range, that you slope down to very severe hearing loss. A notched hearing loss is very particular to people who are exposed to noise, whether it is occupational noise or recreational noise. Recreational noise may be hunting, shooting, and then industrial noise or occupational noise is what you are exposed to in the factories. And then sometimes some people have good low frequencies, but then sloping to high frequencies only. So then this is a high frequency hearing loss. So we've talked about quite a bit of the hearing loss, and then let's take a look at the audiograms. I think, these ones, because they were copied a little bit, and then so it's a little bit off. So let me just adjust this one. So this is a correct ratio now. So then, the observation here is that there's not much of a bone conduction and, air conduction difference. There is a slight difference, but then this is within 10 dB. So this is 10 dB, then we say we don't count that as a difference. Then it will sloping down to a severe or the profound range. So then for this one, then we say, oh, the right ear. Remember which color is the right? The red one. Okay. So the red one is the right. And then we can say, okay, for the hearing loss range, it's sort of like moderately severe range. And then, sloping to below 90. So this is at 100. So that means that it's a profound range. So for this person, because there's no difference between the air conduction and bone conduction threshold, and the hearing loss is between moderately severe to profound sensory neural hearing loss. That's how, when you have the audiogram, and then that's how they describe this one. And then for the left ear, the left is the blue, right? So the blue also goes from moderately severe. And then the end one is sort of on the verge of the profound, but then still within the severe hearing loss range. So that's a 71 to 90 dB. So then when that happens, then you will say, wow, this person has moderately severe to severe sensory neural hearing loss. And remember that any sound that is above the air conduction threshold, they can't hear. Below, they can hear. So that's how you interpret number one. So let's take a look at another one. So this one, the configuration, it seems like is coming from the low frequencies is more severe, and then rising to the high, high frequency actually has better hearing. So, and then I also want to introduce one more symbol to you. So anytime you see a symbol, but then with an arrow on it, whatever, the symbol is, and then with an arrow just means that the person did not respond to the bone, to the presentation mode, or whether it's bone or it is air, at the highest permissible range of the audiometer. So that means it is a no response symbol. And then for this person, the bone has no response at 250, but then they do have response at 500, 1,000, and then 2,000. And then the thresholds would be rising. So then the sounds that the person cannot hear are all the speech sounds. Compared to the other one, this person hears a little bit more of the high frequency loud sounds. And then the other person could not hear the vacuum, but then this person can hear it. So again, anything that is above the threshold, they can't hear. Below the threshold, they can hear. And then when you look at the range of hearing loss, and then you say, okay, for the right ear is sort of in the moderately severe range, and then rising to normal hearing range. So then this person, we will say moderately severe sensory neural hearing loss, rising to normal hearing in the right ear. For the left ear, you can say, okay, this one has moderately severe hearing loss and then rising to mild hearing loss range. So then and then it is a sensory neural type of hearing loss. That means that there's nothing wrong in the middle ear or the outer ear. And then that's how you classify it as a sensory neural hearing loss. So, and then, one person also asked me, okay, what is the PTA? So the PTA is actually really simple. It is just pure tone average. So in the US, and then you just say, okay, what is the 500? This one is also, somehow, okay. Somehow this one is also become fatter. So then this one, that's how it should be. All right. So then you say, okay, 500, 1,000, and 2,000. That's 500, 1,000, and 2,000. Then if you read the thresholds, what? Okay, so this one, I think is that. Okay, I am sorry, because we went through a few versions, and then it seems like, the versions, and then the width of the audiogram and the thresholds, which I plot manually, and then got shifted a little bit. So 500, 1,000, and 2,000. Then if we read the red is 70, 70, and 65. So 70, 70, and 65. So you add all those together and divide it by 3, and then you got 68.3. So this is just a number that is so easy for people to say, okay, I got about 70 dB of hearing loss, So when people are talking about that, they can be referring to the pure tone average. So just using one number to represent the audiogram. And then the World Health Organization actually used 500, 1,000, 2,000, and 4,000. So then you read 70, 70, 65, and 4,000 is all the way here. That's 45. So then you add 70, 70, 65 plus 45 divided by 4. That's 62.5 dBHL. So then that is the pure tone average, sort of just using one number to represent the audiogram. And okay, so are we okay with the last two audiograms? Yes? Okay. So let's look at number 3. So number 3, it seems like, okay, you have the left one here, the right one here, and then there are a lot of arrows there. A lot of arrows means that the person did not have any response. So when the audiologist say beep, 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 or press the button beep, 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 there's no response to the person. So the person did not hear. And then why are these ones different is that the audiometers actually have different amounts of sound that they can put out. And then, and then maximum sound is different at different frequencies. So then, for, if the audiologist present at 115 and then the person did not respond, that's this one. 115, 115, and then at 6,000, the audiometer, the most the audiometer can put out is a 100, but the person did not respond. So then that is the error, and then this one is the same. So at 90 dB at 8,000 hertz, the person did not respond. So those are the markings. Then if you say, okay, so for the right ear, remember is the red one, only has 2 frequencies the person responded to. And then this is basically a corner audiogram that we saw. So only the very loud sounds at low frequencies they could hear, but nothing at high frequencies. And then for the left ear, then we say, okay, the range is within the severe range, but then it does dip into the profound range. So then we say they have severe to profound hearing loss. And notice here, this is about 15 dB here. So that qualifies as an airborne gap of 15 dB or more. So this person actually has a mixed hearing loss in the left ear. So that's how we read the audiogram.
I'm gonna just quickly stop you there. We have one question from earlier. Harry asked, would both left and right ear numbers be used to get an average of a PTA numbers?
No, left is left, right is right. So left has its own number and the right has its own number. So you usually have the PTA left and PTA right.
That makes sense.
Very good question. Very good question.
It really was a good question. That makes sense. Thank you.
Yep. So, and then we say, okay, so when we are looking at an audiogram, so in the beginning of this slides, and then we have one audiogram that is deliberately left empty so that you can plot your own audiogram onto it and then see what kind of sounds you can hear and you cannot hear. So the takeaway here is that you notice whether you're doing, looking at the left ear or the right ear. What is the degree of hearing loss? And then, then these are the guide. So the degree of hearing loss. What is the type of hearing loss? Whether you have sensory neural, conductive, or mixed hearing loss. And then the configuration is the shape of the audiogram. And then you certainly want to say, okay, what is the threshold? So then you will look at the threshold. And then you want to know which sounds the person can hear and which sounds they cannot hear. So that's how we think about it. And then there's another one is the aided or unaided. So unaided is just that when you are testing the person and then without any amplification, without any hearing aids or cochlear implants, what can they hear. So usually then people would have some sort of hearing loss. And then if they have, or they wear the hearing aids and you test them again, and then their thresholds actually get better, then we say, oh, okay, this is why we want to do the amplification. Remember, for this person, at first, all the high frequency sounds cannot hear. And then with the hearing aid, most of the high frequency sounds they can hear it. So it's sort of like bringing these sounds that were originally cannot hear into the can hear range. So that's the goal of wearing hearing aids or cochlear implants. So this one is a cochlear implant chart. Usually the modern day cochlear implants, they would allow you to hear around 25 dB. And then sometimes it may be 30 dB, but most of the time you can hear about 25 and some of them at 30. So the person, if they wear a cochlear implant, usually would say, oh, okay, I have, my hearing range is in the mild hearing loss or borderline normal hearing. So again, they would use the red and blue to mark the left, to the right and the left ear. So Harry, we are here. So, okay, before I go forward to talk about the speech testing, do you guys have any questions?
Does anyone have any questions? It looks like Harry has a question.
Okay.
He says, do I understand you to say after getting hearing aids fitted, after the hearing aid test, another sound test should be done to see what improvement there might be?
Okay, that is another very good question. So in the beginning, when Carrie asked me to talk about this, and then we included one measure that is called the real ear measurement. But, like I said, my original slide deck was more than 80 slides, and then Carrie trim it down to 40 something. And then with 80 some slides, I thought that there's no way I can, explain real ear measurement in this talk. So then we just say, okay, maybe, I can come back, or we can ask another audiologist and then to, explain that. So then, the old method is to test in the sound field when you're wearing the hearing aids, and then you would test the, they would say woo 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 sound, and then you can hear that, and then you press the button when you hear. But nowadays with the hearing aids, we use the real ear measurement where people usually put a probe tube. It's a very, very small thin tube into your ear. And then they would directly just, test within the ear to see how much you can hear, or, for the low level sounds, middle level sounds, and high level sounds. And that measurement is called real ear measurement again. That can also would tell us at what level they should limit the loudest sound that you can hear. So that is a newer method to test the hearing aid, how much amplification you're getting from hearing aids. And then we're not talking about it today, but then, that is actually a newer method that we can use to test your hearing.
Thank you. And looks like Carol has a question. Go ahead, Carol.
Yeah, I'm not sure I followed all of that explanation, but this is what I've wondered. The real ear measurement seems to be the gold standard that
Yep.
unfortunately a lot of audiologists don't do. But I've also wondered why this test isn't simply going in the booth with the hearing aids on and testing it. Wouldn't that be the most accurate and the easiest test?
Okay, that is another very good question. So, the hearing aids nowadays, usually when way back when, like 30, 40 years ago, the hearing aid only provide one level of gain to you. So whether it's soft sound, medium sound, or loud sounds, they provide the same amount of gain. So then you use the, you go into the booth and then they test you, and then they know exactly what is the amount of gain that you're getting. But the modern hearing aids actually provide you with different amounts of gain at different input levels. Means that soft sounds, they provide more gain. And then medium sounds, they provide medium level gain. And then loud sounds, they actually provide smaller amounts of gain. In order for us to see what is, the amount of gain at different input levels or loudness level, we have to use the area measurements. So that is going to give us more information than just testing the softest level that you can hear.
Thank you. And you're absolutely right that everything changed so much for the past 34 years, and especially with all this technology coming in the way now. So it really helps a lot.
Yep.
Yeah, so just go ahead and the floor is yours. Go ahead.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about the speech testing. So, when you went into the booth, they don't always, they don't just test your beep, beep, beep or beep type of, thresholds. They also try to test your speech threshold. So this is when they say, okay, please repeat after me. So they say baseball, fire truck, hot dog, mushroom. So then what you do is that you repeat the words back to them. So then if they say, fire truck, you say fire truck. If they say mushroom, you say mushroom. They say hot dog, you say baseball. Then they say, oh, that's not right. And then they're going to increase the level until you can get it right. And then until when you get it right, and then they say that, okay, let me find out, if I decrease the level, what is the level you can hear? So then they go back down and then, try to figure out what is the softest level that you can repeat these 2-syllable words. Most of the time we say 2 out of the 3 times that they present. If you say baseball and then, they say baseball, you say baseball, hot dog, then they say, okay, that's the level. So this is the one that they are testing you. What is the softest level you can repeat speech? So then that one is called the speech reception threshold. So there's another one that, say if it is a baby and then, or someone with, cannot speak or can, from a different language. And then you say, okay, they cannot repeat the words to me, but then I can see when they start to detect the speech. So they will say, ba, 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 and then see whether you turn or whether you look. Or, they say, where am I now? And then if you look at, then if the person respond or, if it is an adult and then they are just a second language speaker or another language speaker, and then they can even press the button. So you say, ba, 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 and then if they heard it, they press the button. And then you say, where am I now? They press the button. And then the level is going to get lower and lower until they cannot hear. And then when they cannot hear, then we will increase the level and decrease the level to see where you can get it right about 2 out of 3 times. So that is called the speech detection threshold. So that is the detection, right? That's the, anytime you're talking about threshold, it is the softest. Just link those 2 terms. Threshold, softest. So pure tone threshold means that softest level you can, hear pure tones. Speech threshold means that what is the softest level you can hear speech or repeat speech. There's another one, and then that's called the speech discrim, word rec, or SR, WRS, and then, all those things. And then if they report in percentage, so if we report in percentage, that is testing you saying that, okay, if speech is loud enough, how much you can understand. So then the word can be, say the word laud, say the word base, say the word please. So then what you do is to repeat the base, laud, and please. So then, then that is a way that we test how much you can understand speech. And then, well, I got an audiogram, and then I'm supposed to explain what are they actually saying. So CNC means that the word has a consonant, a vowel, and a consonant. And means nucleus. So consonant, vowel, consonant. So then if you say the word cat, and then the person repeats catch, then if we score the whole word, then that's one word, one count. But because the word was cat, but then you say catch, then the whole word is counted incorrectly. So that is 0/1. There's another way, and then if you notice that in the on the table it has phonemic, that means that because CAT has consonant, vowel, consonant, that can be counted as 3 items. So then, then one word correct is equal to 3 correct. Then if the person said, if the audiologist says cat, you say catch. Then you say add, they're correct. But then the t, you say ch, so that's not correct. Then in the phonemic scoring scheme, that you actually got 2 out of 3 correct, instead of the whole word is not correct. So what this table is saying is that, okay, and then in the clinical notes, this is what the audiologist said. So CNC 7, right, CI only. So then, I used the, person Betty White. She just came to my mind when I was preparing the slides. So then, this table is saying that when Miss Betty White was tested using the word list number 7, the CNC word list number 7, she repeated 84% of the words correctly when she was wearing her CI, the right CI. And then we say, oh, okay, how about the phonemic? The phonemic, then you say, okay, Miss Betty White was tested using CNC word list 7. She repeated 95% of the phonemes correctly when she was wearing the cochlear implants. So that's how you see that there is a the one, the lower score and the phonemic score. Phonemic is always, going to be higher. So, and then there's another one, another test that's going to, Harry, and then it is, okay, they're going to put noise into, the speech that I'm going to listen for. So what this means that is that, sometimes we say, okay, what is the signal to noise ratio of 10? That means the signal level minus the noise level is equal to 10. And then in this example, we have 65 and 55. So the difference is 10 dB. So then that means the noise is presented as 55, and then the speech is at 65. So then they will say, okay, exactly how many words do you get correctly? So then in this one, this person is actually doing really well. So at signal to noise ratio of 10 dB, Miss Betty White got the sentences 86% of the sentences correctly. That's how you interpret this item. So the take-home messages from hearing tests would be to understand what your audiogram is telling you. Know that, the sounds that are under, like below the air conduction threshold is what you can hear. Above is what you cannot hear. And then the 4 things is that left or right ear, the type of hearing loss, the degree of hearing loss, and then the configuration of hearing loss. Those are the 4 things that if you remember, and then you got the audiogram. And then that's also how I teach my students to summarize all the audiograms using remember the 4 things and put them into one sentence. That's the summary of the audiogram. And then the speech reception threshold is the softest level you can understand speech or hear or detect speech. And then the speech recognition threshold scores, which is reported in percentages, is actually what amount of information that you can understand. The understand means that you can repeat back to the audiologist. So do we have any questions?
I was just about to say that before we leave this section. Does anyone have any questions? I know I do. That speech testing was just really interesting because one of the things that I've learned during my time is because I have something called language processing. So, whenever somebody says something to me, it takes a couple of seconds for me to respond to what that person said. However, I had one time I went to the Massine ear to see if I was qualified for a cochlear implant. So they were doing testing on me, and they were using a computer voice as the human voice. So I failed the computer voice. But when I went to see my audiologist, and my audiologist said, Jonathan, you did not fail. You failed on the computer voice. And I think it's just a lot of audiologists should be using the human voice to test you. So my question to you is, what do you think?
Okay, so there is a very famous phenomenon, like sometimes I talk to a person and then they don't understand me. And then I say, oh, talk to the wife, right? The wife talked to the husband, and then she says the same thing, and then the husband could understand. So that is the difference between human voices and the computer voice. The computer voice is a standardized, like whether you understand, not understand, everyone is standardized to that one voice. But then if it is an audiologist's voice, and then sometimes you can understand one audiologist more than the other one, then that becomes the difference, the variability. It's just like, I say something to the person they don't understand, but then the wife says something and then they actually do understand. So then that is the variation.
It's
And
just like
depends on,
it's
yeah.
just like it's like depends on how comfortable you are with that human voice, like you are familiar with that
Yep.
voice, so that what interests you.
Yep.
And it looks like Harry has another question. Your presentation has been very interesting. Thank you. I learned a lot. How much of what you have shared should an audiologist take time to explain or even provide a brochure to have to explain to be able to come back with questions?
I think that's why we're doing this session, right? Because it took me about 1 hour to explain, just how to do the testing for the pure tone and also the speech. And then imagine how many tests we actually do on you. Then, it would be quite a long time in order to explain that to everyone. So keep coming to, HLAA, so you'll learn more.
Absolutely. Thank you. Does anyone have any more questions before we go? Even Harry just asked another question. Are sentences used to what's that word? Depict real life situations or just single words? It just seems as though a testing using background noises like one encountered in real life will be helpful.
Yes, that's why we do it. Yes, great question, great comment.
Thank you. It looks like we got no more questions on this slide, so go ahead.
All right. So, and then I want to share some technologies, and then these ones are already something you have in your system, but then maybe you're not using it. So the technologies, one of the common challenges for individuals with hearing loss is that signal level decreases as you go further and further away from the speaker. So then that's why we say, okay, sit in front, make sure that you can look at their face. And then also another one is that the background noise, if it is, at the ... level, if you sit further and further away, then your signal to noise ratio is actually going to decrease quite a bit. So, and then also in the environment, you also have all these reverberation that is, the direct sound goes into you, but then the sounds bounce around and then comes back to you. And then that also creates interference. So there are several technologies that you can use. So one of them is called a directional microphone. So if you see your hearing aid has two holes, one hole is here, the other one is here. And then if it is in the ear hearing aids, and then you have one hole here and then one hole the other way. So when you see two holes in your hearing aids, that means you have directional microphones. So they are very, very useful because they can allow you to focus on certain directions more than the other ones. So if your hearing aid only has one hole, then that means that it will be sensitive to all directions. So this is a bubble, I just tell my students, then, how do you explain this? Just use the word bubble. So, you have this whole bubble, and then the bubble is equally big on all sides. That means that it is equally sensitive to all directions. It picks up sounds from all directions equally well. So by the way, 0 is front, 90 is right, and then the back is 180, and then the left is 270. So you have the bubbles that being sensitive to all directions means equally picked up at all directions. Look at this one. This one, the bubble is only in front. How great would that be? That means all these sounds, not that they are not picked up at all, but then they'll be picked up at a much lower level. So then for this one, then you can focus on listening to people in front of you. So then that is, when you're in a restaurant or something, and then you put your back to the noise, and then you can actually focus on people in the front. Then you say, how about, sometimes the noise comes from the sides. Then if they are coming from the sides, then you say, oh, okay, then we will, have another figure 8 type of pattern that the bubble is to the front and the back, but they're not sensitive to noise on the sides. So how would this be advantageous? Imagine that you have someone that's the green in front, and then you also have background noise at the back. So for this one, you can focus to the front, and then your background noise will be really reduced. And then we also have this hypercardioid pattern. And then the noise can be coming from the two sides, speech from the front. Then they can change to this hypercardioid pattern. And then you can actually, hear a lot better. And then you also have a bidirectional. That means that it is the figure 8, and then for the noise from here. And I can tell you that all the hearing aids, almost, all the hearing aids, they can automatically change to different positions or different polar patterns or different bubble patterns. And then depending on your environment. So they are already in your hearing aids, and then they're already automatically adjusted. But the thing is that if you go to a place and then you want to have a specific, more noise reduction or more aggressive directional microphones, you can ask your audiologist to change it. So, to illustrate what we want to do here. So you say, okay, I go to a restaurant, and then this is the seating plan. So for you, and then do you want to sit in the perimeter or you want to sit in the middle? So would someone say perimeter, raise your hand, and then maybe, Jonathan can tell me.
I mean, I'm not sure just because my gut hearing is on my left. So I'll just say depends on where I want to sit to able to hear somebody speaking to my left ear. So yeah. I know that Brad got his hand raised. What you got, Brad?
Yeah, I always try to sit with my back to the wall so I don't have to worry about background noise.
Oh, that's the worst thing you can do.
Yeah, well,
Oh, Brad, I am so sorry, Brad.
that's why I'm here. I'm here to learn. Teach me.
Yeah,
Just a second.
I remember one time Brad and I hung out and we wanted to go outdoors. So I think a lot of people prefer to go outdoors instead of indoors sitting. So I see that Carol has a question. So I'm sorry for delay, Carol. And I know that this is your favorite topic. So go ahead, Carol.
That's okay, thanks. I've made a transcript that I will save because I want to read over what you said so I can really understand it. And that is my problem, that I wonder to what extent it's problems that others have. I have read about delayed understanding, that with hearing loss, it is more difficult to follow a conversation. That even though I can hear the words and understand individual words, the whole thought is just, I have to, I need either slow speech or somebody to say something and then have a long pause so I can figure out what was said. And to what extent does this plague other people, or is it some problem with not paying sufficient attention? Or is there a slow passage of the meaning of words into the brain?
Well, it is actually your brain trying to figure out in that situation. So because maybe you are not receiving the whole signal because the speech actually has a lot of redundancies. So if you say two cats, you have the two and the s to tell you that there are multiple cats, right? So then if you're missing some of these things, then your brain has to figure it out. So when your brain try to figure out, that takes time to process. So that's why, it has a delay. And then at this moment, we don't have anything that can do that in real time. But I can tell you that if you want to watch movies, you can change the speed of the movies. So there was one time there was a gentleman, and then we asked him to, to watch TV, like the news, right? He said he wanted to watch news. And then at speed of 1 means that it is at the speaking speed, he could not understand. And then we adjusted to 0.75. Then he said, oh, I can understand now. And then we just to 0.5. That means that is really slowing down. Then he said, oh, no, that I don't understand. So then we actually find out 0.75 was actually a perfect speed for him to understand news on YouTube, because you can adjust the speed. But otherwise, then in real time, not yet. But what we can do is to reduce the noise so that your brain does not need to work that hard, and that probably can reduce the processing time for you.
Thank you. Thank you. Before we go to the next slide, I asked a bunch of people where they would like to sit. So I got a couple of people says back in the wall, just like what Brad said. And some people said to the booth. And there's one person that said that I would like to sit very close and focus on the person speaking to hear from them. And then the person DM me directly saying, I would like to sit where I could see the food cooking from the kitchen.
Okay, that probably is the worst place you can sit. So, okay. Because you're all, facing the noise. Remember that, in order for you to take advantage of directional microphones, you have to separate the bubble from the noise. So this is the bubble that you can hear. Can hear more in the front, but then you can hear less in the background, right? So if you're back to the wall, and then what is the noise what noise is there for you to reduce? There's not much noise for the microphone to reduce, but we do have reflections, everything that you can reduce, but your most sensitive part is toward the crowd. So then when you have the most sensitive part toward the crowd, and then the person you want to talk to is also in front of you, that means that all the crowd and the person you want to listen, there's no separation between them. So no separation between the person and the noise. The best thing you can do is to put the person in front and the noise at the back. So that is the best the best place. So we have a few slides and I was going to go, one
Okay.
by one. So
Sounds good.
then, so now then, I'm saying that this booth or that booth, because this whole thing is symmetric, right? So I'm just using one side or that booth. And then if someone wants to hear on the left-hand side, so then this is definitely the booth to go. If you want to hear on the, right-hand side, then probably, this one is the better one. So among the seats, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So now with that bubble in your mind, which is the best seat for you? It says 3. 3 is back to the wall. 2 is also back to the wall. But you just learned that when you have yourself back to the wall, your bubble is in front. So that means all the noise and the person you want to talk to is in front of you. So there's no separation between the two. Then the directional microphone does not work well. So with that knowledge, do you think 1 or 4, which one is better?
Does anyone want to answer that? I would go say number 2.
You're number 2, you're still back into the wall.
Carrie says 4.
Okay.
What does everyone think? Which number works? I'm pretty sure that Julie, what Julie mentioned earlier, that she likes to be back of the walls. I think she goes to either 2 or 3, right, Julie? She nodded yes. Harry
Yeah,
says,
but the thing is that, if you have 2 and 3, so then this is your nose. Your most
yeah.
sensitive bubble is right, to the noise and the person you're sitting with.
Well,
So the directional microphone is not reducing much of a noise for you.
well, the thing is, I think what a lot of people would do is that it just depends where they want to sit in order to look at the people's lips, where they communicate. Instead of looking left and right, they weren't able to look the whole, the whole room to see what everybody's talking.
Okay. So then, but then, do you want to hear all the noise from other table, or you just want to hear the people in front of you?
Well, I think for me, well, I could easily turn on my hearing aid off and I don't hear anything anymore. But I have no idea.
Okay.
That's really. I mean,
So
it's been a while. Harry says either 1 or 4.
it's good because now you're separating the noise and the people that you want to hear, right? So then, next time when you go to a restaurant and then try to put your back to the noise and then you point to the person that you want to hear. Put the difference between the person you want to hear and the background noise. And then you can even switch the seats with 2 and 3 to see whether it's better. I would pick 1. So I will pick 1 because all the noise and then, most of the noise is behind me.
Someone DM me that I would pick 1 and 4 just because I don't want to ask somebody to move when I need to use the restroom.
If you want to hear, those are 2 better seats too. So, that's why we have this exercise. Most people fail. So don't feel bad. That's why this thing is here, it's not because, it's a random thing, this is from experience. 1 and 4 sit on the corner so that, 1 is better than 4 unless that you have an ear that, if your left ear cannot hear, then, probably 4 is good. But then if your left ear can hear, and then you know, one, you will have most of the noise at the back. And
Right.
then, yeah, so then that would probably be a better one. All
Uh,
right.
Go
Yep.
ahead. We do have one more question from Caroline just raised her hand. Caroline, do you have a question?
Well, it was just answered a minute ago because I was thinking between 1 and 4, depending on whether you hear better with your right or left ear would
Yep.
make a difference which one you'd choose. And you
Mhm.
just addressed that. So I put my hand down.
Okay, that's cool. So the main thing is to put the difference, separate the speech that you want to hear and the noise into two different locations.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So this one. So then you say all the booths were gone, and then you have no choice, and you love this restaurant. Where do you sit? So I would just pick this table for you, right? Okay. So this is probably better than the middle ones. So then 1, 2, 3, 4, and then where do you think it's a better one? And then assume that this bar is noisier than, there's no good seats here, but maybe some of them are better than the other, depending on where's the noise. So if we are saying that this kitchen or the bar area is the loudest, which seat that would be better?
I'm not going to answer any questions because I've been getting them wrong.
It's okay. I mean, that's
So
why we have this one, right?
Harry says either 3 or 4.
Okay, you're facing the noise again.
Somebody did say, depends on what kind of technology you have, and if you have the microphone on the table, chances are you may just hear what your group is saying. It will block the noise.
That is true. And, in any case, put yourself, between the person you want to hear and the noise that is bothering you. So, put the noise at the back and then the person in the front. So if the most noisy place is the bar, then I would say 1 or 2 is better than 3 or 4. 3 or 4, you're just putting 1 and 2 and the bar in the same direction.
That's very true. What about the Sydney area? If you want to watch the game and you're not looking at the TV directly.
Oh, then you use an aura gas.
There you go.
Yeah. So, this goes to be the bubbles, right? Sometimes you also have the apps and then you can see the bubble, so this one is a bubble sensitive to all directions. The bubble sensitive to the side, the right-hand side, or the bubble sensitive, picks up most of the sounds from the front and the sides. And then this one, the bubble is really, really small. So then this one, is called what we call the shotgun. So then you can choose. But the thing is that the directional microphones do not work if the noise and the person you want to hear is in the same direction. You've got to separate those two. So hopefully this is driving home, okay, this idea. All right, so then I think, noise reduction algorithms, these ones you already have in your phone. And, sometimes you can control, but then it's always on your hearing aids. And then you have impact noise, like the, really sharp or banging noise. The impact noise, those are very short sounds, and the wind noise reduction algorithms, they are already there. If you always work outside, you can tell your audiologist, say that, okay, I may need more wind reduction algorithms. So then you can tell them, to adjust it to be higher. They have different levels of speed. Or different levels of performance, not the speed. Speed is also one thing too, but how much noise is going to be reduced. That's the one. So remote mics, I think many of you have it. That's very good. what it does is that it automatically transmit the sound from the microphone location to the hearing aid. So that's what the remote mics do, and then they are great. So if you don't have it, and then try to explore that option. The telecoil is another thing that, in the meeting room that we were in, the T-coil system was set up, and then I think he set up a more complicated uh, T-coil system on the floor instead of just a round thing. And then he set up something that you would go back and forth, and then those ones would cancel some of the interference, and then I think it will retain the electromagnetic wave in the room better. So then, in any case, if you don't ask for the T-coil, a lot of times you don't get it. If you ask for it, I think it's actually free. So make sure that you ask when you order the hearing aids. Ask your audiologist you want to have the T-coil. So the mechanism is exactly the same. You just, whoever is wearing the microphone is going to be transmitted directly to your hearing aid, and then transmission is done using this coil. So, or the loop system that we are talking about. And then you can turn it on using your app. And then with all these things, they are very helpful. But there is a time that whatever you have is not enough. And that might be the the time that you want to consider cochlear implants. So at this moment, the criteria is 60% of speech understanding score, or less than 60% in the opposite year. And then the sentence score is below 50 in the ear to be implanted. And then the PTA4, now you understand what PTA4 is. So it's calculating the 4 frequencies. The PTA4 is higher than 60 dB. Then if you are meeting both of these criteria, then you can get cochlear implants. And I have to say that the big data is saying that if for someone who meets the criteria here, cochlear implant would provide better speech understanding score and the environmental sound sensitivity than hearing aids. So at that point, if the time comes, and then please give it a thought. And then there's another thing is that there's diminished return for hearing aids if the hearing loss is greater than 65 or 70 dB. So, if you have the hearing thresholds more than that, CI may provide better outcome, especially if you meet these criteria, because that means that the hearing aid help is only giving you 50% in the ear that you have are going to be implanted, and then the 60% in the opposite ear. So then CI can be a better option at that moment.
Anyone had any questions? I know that Harry had a question. By the way, Harry is from Lincoln, Nebraska.
Oh, Lincoln,
Yeah.
Nebraska. Hello, Harry. Thank you
Hi,
for asking
Harry.
the great
I was-
questions.
I was eating earlier. I didn't want to be chewing food when the camera's on. So
That's okay.
That's okay, Harry. I'm just surprised that you just show us what your dinner is. Yeah, I'm gonna go for Harry's question. T-coil and hearing loops are great when the mic is being used. Best way to hear well. Not sure why we have to ask for T-coil. They don't cost extra. That's a great question, Harry. Definitely.
Sometimes you can see that, hey, sometimes you need to think about, what you're asking for. Because, most of the individuals with hearing loss, they want the smallest thing they can have, right? And then if you think about this T-coil, it actually occupies space. So then, in order to make it small, and then some of the hearing aids might not have the T-coil.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
It's just it also depends, like say if the place has a T-coil, but it also depends on where you're sitting. So, I remember the first time I had turned the T-coil on for the first time ever, and it was at the Hearing Loss New England Conference. And when I was like on the left and right, it didn't work. But once you sit on the middle of the conference, you hear the echo. And as what Brad was saying, that because you're too close to the what is it called, Brad? The antennas.
So I think the issue you ran into is you were sitting half inside this loop and half outside the loop. So
Oh.
the coil was taped to the floor, and not every
Mm.
chair was actually completely inside the loop.
Okay, and
If I could, I'm sorry, if I could add to that hearing loop, because I've been working with a hearing loop installer and the figure eight or the phase array install. You're right, Dr. Chung, that helps one reduce how much spill, thank you, happens if you're like in a courtroom maybe, or you're side by side meeting rooms, and
Yep.
then the hearing loop wire supposedly has, like I'm told, a 6 foot, oval or a range around it. So that's why you don't need a line every row. Basically, every other row is enough because they both spill over to the middle row that doesn't have it. So thank you. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt there, but just to help
don't
clarify.
worry
That's
about
good.
it.
Good
Yeah.
information.
Yeah, good. And before we go on to my slideshow, there's one question from Bill. He said, are there any improvement on the horizontal for CI in terms of making the size of the device worn on the head or the hearing aid component smaller?
There are, hearing aid, looking CIs. So then those ones are the older ones, and then the newer ones actually is just, like something that is bigger than a dime, and then you can stick on the head, and then it will have both a speech processor and also the transmitter, and in one thing, like something that is bigger, slightly bigger than the dime. So is that your question? So that there are smaller ones. And then those ones are usually newer generation too. So I don't think there's a speech sound quality difference. If any, it's supposed to be better than the other ones.
Helpful, thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. And Harry asked, how does it attach your head? A magnet?
Yeah, so if it is a CI, then you implant a magnet inside the skin, and then you have a magnet that is on the outside, and then both sides they will stick together, and then that's actually allowing the electrical signal to be transmitted into the internal component, with that magnet in the middle, and then they can do the electromagnetic transmission between the internal and external components.
So
Interesting.
it comes off easily at night to sleep then?
Yes, you can just grab it, just like a magnet, if you have a
Sure, hit
magnet.
it.
No, you don't have to move your head. You can just like that. So that would be good.
Oh,
Well, I might be facing them someday because I'm already at 60 to 70, so I hope not, but we'll see. I've had a drop off in the last year, pretty dramatic. So thank you.
Okay. Sorry to hear about that.
yeah. So okay. That's great. You guys really ask a lot of great questions tonight and all that, and this has been a very successful meeting. So of course we got through the Q&A. So before we close this meeting, there are a couple of things I would like to share. That we got some upcoming events, and another one that's like one of my favorite thing to do right now. So one of them is that for our next meeting, is on May 14th at 6 p.m. I happen to work with him. I am a statewide advisory counselor for the Massachusetts Commission for Deaf and Hard of Hearing, and he is the commissioner. And still, a lot of people still have a tough time pronouncing his name, but his nickname is OP. So all the information is already in our social media and our website is already open for registration. So again, it's on May 14th at 6 p.m. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to email us. We have another event, which if Harry would like to fly to Boston to watch the Boston Red Sox instead of staying in Lincoln, Nebraska. So we have the Wood Sox, which is a AAA minor league system, and they're hosting it Deaf and Hard of Hearing Awareness Day on May 23rd at 6 p.m. There's a QR code that you guys can easily just take a picture. It will go directly to the link. It'll give you some more information. And that's why I'm still waiting to hear from the Boston Red Sox at the Fenway Park. So once I get more information, I will send out an email on social media, and my email address is on the bottom. So you guys want to take a quick picture. And of course, every year the HLAA National is hosting a convention in Indianapolis on June 11th to June 14th. It's so much fun every year. So one of those things that a lot of people from Deaf and Hard of Hearing community come together and we get to know one another. There's a lot of showrooms, tables, vendors, companies comes. It's always a blast. So there's the QR code. Just go ahead, take a picture so you can look into it. And there's a lot of information there of registration fee, where are we staying. And I think that someone sent a little quick, yeah, Harry, I hope you come and join us. You better be there. And then of course, earlier, as I was saying, one of my favorite topics, so I have been working on a hearing aid act bill in state of Massachusetts, and the bill has number 3946. There's a QR code if you guys want to take a picture of that. All the information, the draft, everything of what you need to know about the Hearing Aid Act bill. We are going to be the third, hopefully, will be the third state to have that Hearing Aid Act bill passed, as Washington State and New Hampshire already got it done. So hopefully we'll get that done. So if you guys have any questions, need anything, just please let me know. I'll be very happy to help you guys to get a Hearing Aid Act bill for whatever state you live in. So with that being said, I think we're just about closing up. Does anyone have any questions or anything before we depart our ways? No? Well, I would like to take this opportunity to say thank you to Dr. Chung for her time, and I think that we all learned very well tonight. So, Dr. Chung, thank you very much. It was great to see everyone tonight, and remember, this is going to be on YouTube in a couple of days. So, if you guys have any questions, need anything, just let us know. Thank you very much, and have a good night.